This is Ed. Welcome to part 5 of building your Exchange test lab in Azure. In part 4 we looked at installing the prerequisites, and that included Visual C++ 2013 and also .NET Framework 4.8. I have subsequently installed UCMA Runtime 4, which is required as well, and rebooted the server, and now we are ready to do the installation. So first things first, head over to my file that I downloaded, the ISO. You can only download this from the Visual Studio like volume license subscription. It was not available to the general public, whereas Exchange 2016 and 2013 were. So I'm going to double click the ISO to mount it, and then we're going to launch the setup as administrator. I honestly prefer the unattended installation. It just seems a lot easier than clicking next, but for the sake of these videos, some people are not familiar with command line installation, so we'll do both. I'm going to check for updates. There shouldn't be any, as you can see. Click next, and all it's going to do now is going to basically copy the Exchange files to the server, and then it'll start going through the rest of the steps. Now you'll notice that I haven't launched an elevated command prompt and run prepare AD. This should happen on step 1. You're more than welcome to do it first and then run the setup again after that. If you have like multiple domains or child domains, etc., then you obviously need to prepare all domains and everything else. There's 2 or 3 commands that you need to run. Also, doing the schema, we will do schema as well with the next installation. So as you can see, this machine is pretty quick, so it doesn't need time to think to copy the files, but in your environment or in your lab, you might not have as many processes. Now, what I did find with Exchange 2019 in Azure is if you try to run it with 8 gigs RAM or 16 gigs, it just doesn't function. Services keep stopping, and hence me going to 56 on this one, but I have run it in a lab with 32 gigs of RAM. So just a FYI, if you notice that your lab doesn't want to work, it's not the Exchange itself, it's the amount of resources that you've given it. Right, let's just wait for this to finish before moving on to the next set of options. So while we wait for this, the graphical user interface and the unattended, they do the same thing, and it's just easier to run one command in unattended mode where you accept the Exchange license server terms and you basically let it do its thing, and it'll tell you what roles it's going to install, and then it'll go through each of the roles and you pretty much wait for it to finish. Right, this is now initializing the setup. Okay, so introduction, we're installing Exchange Server 2019 CU3. Click next. Obviously, you've got to accept the license terms. This is asking you, what do you want to do? Do you want to do recommended settings or not? Now, you can customize your installation. Obviously, wouldn't recommend it. I normally leave this as default and click next. Now, in your role selection, you notice you've got 2 roles, mailbox role, edge role. Now, in Exchange 2019, your hub and your CAS is a service now, whereas in Exchange 2010, you had the different roles, CAS, hub, mailbox, unified messaging, and edge. So if we select mailbox, you'll notice that it installs the management tools and it grays out edge, because edge sits in your DMZ. It shouldn't be sitting on a domain network. Right, so click next. It's going to install in the default location. Next. You can obviously specify the name of your organization now, and we're not running split permissions, so leave it as it is. Comes to your malware protection settings. Do you want to disable it? Obviously no. And right now it does a readiness check to see that we've installed all the prerequisites, we've installed all the software. Now, as you can see, which is what I was hoping would happen, because I know I didn't do this, because it needs to run prepare AD, right? It needs the RSAT tools installed. So as you can see, if you scroll down, everything is complaining about RSAT, right? So if we launch PowerShell as administrator, and we go install Windows feature RSAT. Okay, just got to wait for it to complete. This is because I was telling you that the installation itself will do the prepare AD in the beginning, and then it will carry on with the installation. Just got to give it a few minutes to finish. Now, what does RSAT basically give you is, just wait for this to finish and I can show you. So if we actually go now to administrative tools, you can see I've got all the Active Directory snap-ins. Sites and services, domains and trusts, the Active Directory Admin Center, and Active Directory User and Computers. So if we click on retry, it might ask us to do a reboot, or it will allow us to do the installation. So what this basically is now giving you a warning about is it hasn't detected any 2013 or 2016 servers in the environment, meaning when I run the installation, I will not be able to bring in any legacy Exchange servers. Now I'm referring to 2016 as legacy, not because it's going out of date anytime soon, it's just because it's an older version. When a newer version comes out that succeeds 2019, 2019 will also become legacy. So you can see here it's actually warning you. So if you didn't want to just install 2019, you would cancel the setup, you would build yourself either a 2016 server or a 2013 server, and then you'd rerun the setup again, and it would say that it's obviously detected those roles, and then you'll be able to introduce other 2016 servers as well, or 2013 servers, whatever you choose. Right, so now we just click on install. So essentially this is your prepare AD that you would normally run from a command prompt. So gotta wait for this to finish. This setup normally takes I've seen it sometimes in 30 minutes, sometimes in an hour. It just depends on, number one, how busy the server is. You know, if it's fighting for resources on a host. In this case, it's not, because it's pretty fast. It's on SSD storage. Some of the new SANs today come with SSD, so you don't get that latency or the buffering, etc. Again, it just depends on the number of resources you've assigned to the server and how fast your storage is. I mean, the storage that you're using could be shared with SQL, could be shared with ClickView or any other resource-intensive application, which will then obviously cause this to be quite slow. And also, if your memory and CPU is too low, it will then also take a long time, because it's going to spike the CPU. Right. So while that's busy, I just want to show you what the command prompt would look like. we launch this, and let's just check where it was located. It's on the E drive. So E, sorry. Right, then you would go setup / prepare AD / accept exchange server license terms. That's essentially what this is doing here. So if you prefer working in the command line and don't like working in the GUI, then you would basically do that. And the other one that we will be doing is prepare schema, which we'll do once we do the unattended installation in one of the next videos on the second machine that I have in Azure. Right. So at this point, I'm going to let this run. I'm not going to talk in the background. And as the steps go through, then I will start talking again. It's just the setup does take a little while, especially the preparation. You'll see the other server, because prepared was run, it will actually be a lot quicker, and it will go and stop services and copy files, etc. So this one is almost done, and then I will chip in as we go along until it finishes, so you can actually see an installation end to end. As you can see, step 2 is normally pretty quick. You don't actually see it sometimes. On machines that I've installed that have got 128 gigs of RAM, and so they're monsters, you never see step 2. So even in screen captures, I can't capture screen to almost always, because it just goes so quickly. This is now step 3, copy and exchange files. It normally sits on 16% for 15, 20, 30 minutes. Don't think that the installation has failed, right? It's just got a lot of files to copy. I mean, this is a 7 gig ISO, so you can imagine there's a lot of files that it's got to copy in the background. And then you'll see it'll jump from 16 to 20, and then from 20 it'll sit again, and then eventually it'll just be on 90, then 100, and then it'll carry on. So while we wait for this, I wanted to chat about an unattended installation that's automated. Now, one of the other MVPs, Michael DeRoy, he has written it's been since 2013 that he's written a script that basically automates this. So if you don't want to sit like this doing installations manually and for hours on end and days on end because you have to build multiple machines, you can actually also automate this using his script. The script goes and pretty much does the prerequisites for you, does the UCMA, Visual C++, it enables bits for the downloads and disables enhanced mode, and then pretty much does the installation, does a few reboots, checks what version of .NET that you're on, and you literally just enter your credentials. That's a member of the domain scheme and enterprise admins group, and then it goes and it just does everything for you. Reboots, auto logs in, reboots. Once it finishes its phases, whatever customization you want to add to the script, you can, if you are familiar with PowerShell scripting. And then it'll do customizations, and then after it's actually finished the installation, it'll go and remove all the extra things that it's done, and then it will reboot into normal mode, and you'll be presented with a normal screen where you have to log in again. But then you have a fully installed Exchange server. It could be 2016. I've tested it on 2016 in my own environment, and I can install an Exchange server in 15 minutes. I'm not talking about installing the actual VM. This is once the VM has been prepped, joined to the domain, etc. The installation, 15 minutes. Obviously, because the infrastructure is so powerful, but if that is where you want to go, is that where management wants to go, it's actually very easy. I mean, you can license these servers, you can import certificates. It's limitless to what you can do. All the customization that you would need to go and do afterwards, setting your URLs, changing your certificates, assigning the services to certificates, etc., can all be done within the script. It'll do it. There's a section in it. So if you just go look for Michael DeRoy, automated installation of Exchange, you'll find it. And if that's not for you and you prefer doing it manually and sitting for hours doing installation, well, everybody's different. Nothing wrong with it. It's just if you're a senior resource, then obviously your time is money, and you need to get as many built, etc. And I mean, customers also, they want you to build machines quickly, efficiently. They want you to patch them and all that. So think about it. But if you're just starting out with Exchange, then doing this is pretty much straightforward. It's easy. It's not difficult as long as you follow the steps of installing the prerequisites that is needed for Exchange 2019 or 2016, and then making sure that you follow what's needed on the error screens. It'll tell you what's needed or missing, etc. So as you can see now, it's starting to shift along. Was on 16% for a little while, and then once this is done, it'll obviously then do languages, restore files, carry on with languages, and then start with all the services, transport service, client access, etc., hub transport. So you notice how it's jumping. Again, it depends on your environment. You'll also notice that it's got the new icon versus the old icons for Exchange 2019. Okay, so on this machine you'll notice that I don't have any antivirus running. It's not because I don't want to run it, I normally do installations without AV running because AV tends to hamper installations, especially if it's locked down where files try and access the system to copy, or you want to install stuff, it modifies the registry. It locks it down so much that the installs just fail with the error 1603, and 1603 is a pretty broad error to try and figure out. So obviously afterwards I will do, like in your post installation checks, you will go and install any security updates or Windows updates for Exchange 2019 and Visual C++ and .NET 4.8, and then do AV and exclusions for AV. Exclusions are very important. The reason being is you don't want antivirus scanning log files and then deleting log files, which will cause inconsistency, but also you don't want it scanning the EDB because it will slow down everything on Exchange. Right, so it will eventually switch over to the next screen. So again, I'm going to pause until it goes to the next step, and then I will resume speaking. Right. Next step is doing language files. This one is generally pretty quick, as you can see. So obviously if you install an Exchange with multiple languages, this will obviously take longer, or if you're installing the language packs. But generally you would download Exchange for the language that, or country that you are in, and the language that you are using. If you want to see how busy the installation actually is, you can go look at the performance, and even though my memory is not that high, you can see my CPU is constantly busy. If you can see the setup here, it's forever moving. Now if you have too little CPUs or RAM assigned, this will generally spike to 100% because now it's trying to page. So you can see one of them is quite busy, but it's actually not high still. The box is idling. If you were installing an additional server and you had to open your Exchange admin center and go to servers, you would see that this would show the new server, but it would say no roles assigned, or roles assigned will be none, because it hasn't completed the mailbox role yet. As soon as the mailbox role is completed, then that will change to mailbox. You might be wondering why I'm doing CU3. Since 2019's release, there's been quite a few fixes and changes in Exchange. I generally like to stay one version behind the latest one, but with the amount of things that are changing here, and because it's still new, and there's no Service Pack 1 released yet for this, I generally try to update to the latest. Obviously it's a risk because you don't know what new things you're introducing, but in this case it's just a test lab, so if something is not working or is broken, then it's not a problem. But obviously in production environments, and this is how you can test and motivate why you either should go to a new CU or not, it's because you can show them that you've identified these issues, and whereas CU2, for example, doesn't have them, but it's got other issues. So it just depends on the organization. Some organizations are strict with their CABs information. And right. So coming back to the CU update, it's the same with 2016 or 2013. There's been so many changes and fixes over the last few months that it's advisable to try and keep up to date with the latest ones, and that includes the security patches that come out along with it. So as you can see, step 5 there was pretty quick as well. We had restore services, and now it's going to do languages. Now this one also tends to sit here for a little while before it actually does anything. Again, the setup is not broken, so don't quit it or reboot it. So in my case it was quite quick, so it's done. It's now doing management tools. Now in Exchange 2019 you don't have the tools like in Exchange 2010, it's part of the Exchange management console. This is its own separate thing where you can have like a queue viewer, etc. As you can see here, now we're already on step 8, the mailbox role. So it's actually doing the transport service. So this is the role, and this is the service is doing. So the next one will be the client access, and then it'll actually do the mailbox role, and then it will do the front end, etc. As you can see, it's quite a long process to sit and stare at the screen waiting for it to finish. But once you get to that level, look at the automation of installing Exchange. I haven't had any issues with Michael DeRoy's script thus far. The only issue I had the other day was one of my servers blue screened halfway, and the server just wouldn't recover, just wouldn't do its installation completely, kept complaining about push notifications, etc. But that was underlying storage that caused the VM to blip, and then the VM blue screened, and yeah. Other than that, I have never had an issue with the automation. If you're not comfortable using somebody else's script, then you're more than welcome to also create your own script to do the installation. Or you can just do the unattended, which basically you launch the command prompt elevated, which we'll do in the next video, and then let the setup run. Right, so this one is almost complete. So as you can see now, we spoke about mailbox role, client access service, and these generally go quite quickly on installation. While we're on the client access service topic, I saw somebody asked a question on the forums where they said they introduced a 2019 server and they couldn't understand why clients were getting pop-ups or disconnects in the organization. When you install a new server like this, it is pretty much live. You need to go and set up your URLs. If you're using the same namespace, the URLs, your certificate needs to be set up, your bindings need to be correct, must be bound to your SSL certificate to avoid unnecessary disconnects, or IT phone calls that Outlook has stopped working, or I'm getting certificate pop-ups from this random server. Just be aware that doing this, that you need to finish your installations, not leave it for 2-3 weeks and then get to it. Is do the installation, do the configuration, and the configuration doesn't take you long. If you have all the PowerShell scripts, which we'll show you, then it's not an issue to do straight after. It'll take you 10-15 minutes to import your certificate into IIS, assign your services, and do your URLs, reboot the server, and you can carry on then without having anybody call you to say that they've got an issue. Right, so we're now pretty much 70% complete. As you can see, we're doing the mailbox service now, still part of the mailbox role. Again, this one completes quite quickly. All depends on your speed of your server, obviously. Right, so that one's almost finished. You see how quick the front end service is already done. And then there should be one more after this one, and then should finalize the settings and then be done. So I know there's a lot of pausing in between, but I just wanted to show you an installation end to end, so you can see instead of skipping a few steps and then just showing you what it looks like at the end. You see the other one finished, so we're now doing the client access front end service. Right, now we are on the final step where it's got to finalize everything. Once we've finished here, we will pretty much have a working Exchange server, and then we will look at going through everything to make sure that everything works. Sometimes these setups are not so straightforward. If you have a mixed environment where you have 2013, 2016, or maybe 2019 servers, and you introduce another 2016 server or a 2013 server, it might fail on the mailbox role. I've seen it happen. You got to go and read why it failed. It could be that there's a watermark somewhere, for example. Maybe there was an installation done previously and forgotten about, and then the person thought they'd bring in another mailbox server and it failed. The errors are pretty self-explanatory. However, some of them are not as easy to configure as, or should I say fix, according to what they say. For example, your push notifications. Your push notifications, first of all, writes to your default backend on Exchange. That's the first thing. It writes to the registry. It writes to the inetserv config files. So it makes it more complex to try and fix and figure out why or where it's failing. Right, so we are almost done with the installation. And there you have it. You have a fully working, fully installed Exchange 2019 server running CU3. Now, generally, we need to reboot after installation. That's what I prefer doing. So in the next video, we'll look at logging into the EAC, which is Exchange Admin Center, and launching the Exchange Management Shell, and we'll go through where Exchange installed an IIS and what to look for, etc. Thank you so much for watching.